Welcome back to ASI Connect and the webinar panel chats thick and fast coming to you over the next couple of days. I'm Bryn Lucas and we have got for you another panel chat starting right now. So this is your time really to consider how we're going to change the way we adapt really and we move around motorsport with how we consume motorsport as also drivers, as teams, as viewers, and a whole lot more. And to talk us through it, we'll go straight to the next session. James Dickens is here. He's the Vice President of Editorial at Motorsport Network. James, looking forward to this one. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Bryn, and welcome everyone to Business and Marketing Strategy in Motorsport as part of the first ever ASI Connect. We'll be looking at how we can reach fans across motorsport post-COVID and how we cope with it during. I am joined by, in no particular order, Jess McFadden, who's Director of Digital Strategy at Motorsport Network, Thomas Tapp, who's Director of Marketing and Sponsorship at WRC, Dale Ballantyne, who's CEO of Motorsport Tickets, and last but certainly not least, Sarah Alwood, who's from Diffused and the project lead for the Motorsport Collection. Welcome, everyone. We'll get straight into it. Jess, tell me a little bit about you, about what your job is at the moment, and how you got to where you are.
Sure. Well, it's definitely interesting times for everybody, especially in the content and the marketing space, with everything that has happened over the past year or so. I actually started at the Motorsport Network alongside you, James, almost a year ago now, and almost exactly at the moment in which we went into lockdown. And then it was actually the day after what would have been the Australian Grand Prix, which never happened. So my year has been adapting to a lot of uncertainty, but also trying to make sure that we're bringing as much information and content to fans that were, especially over the last year, really missing the world of motorsport, and also really needing a way to connect with one another through fairly difficult times as well. So it's all been about how best do we bring as much content in the best way and on the best platforms to our wonderful audiences of motorsport enthusiasts.
Yeah, fantastic. And Dale, obviously during lockdown, there's no races happening. You run a ticketing business. How's that been for you?
Yeah, as you could imagine, it's been a challenge. I've worked in ticketing and live events for over 20 years now, and this is definitely the most challenging time we've ever faced. But you know, we certainly haven't sat on our hands. We're just about to launch a brand new website. We've spent the last 12 months building a brand new customer interface. We've been working on tone of voice and looking at new revenue streams. So we've really made the most of this time. But more importantly, we've tried to keep our customers engaged, which is a little challenging. You know, the customer base that we have at Motorsport Tickets are obviously people who are interested in going out to live events and travel in the world, etc. But we've had some great content, great ways of people keeping engaged. The virtual sessions that Motorsport Games have run, the wealth of video we have on Motorsport TV, etc. We've really tried to keep everyone engaged and as sane as possible during this time.
Yeah, and it looks like you've done a great job. And Sarah, I think your role is a really good example of how businesses can innovate and change what they're doing during COVID and launch, an offshoot. So tell us a little bit about your role with Motorsport Collection.
Yes, so my background's a little bit different. I've been working in the fashion industry for around about 20 odd years, and I've come from luxury and high street. I've done a lot of startup launches as well. So I'm currently working at Diffused, and we're very much about the gaming and the entertainment industry, but we also have a lot of B2Cs under our wings. So our main business is B2B, and due to COVID, the gaming has really increased, as you can imagine, because everyone has got nothing to do but sit and play on their PlayStation or Nintendos. But also, we've seen a really high demand for online fashion. So the likes of Zalando, for instance, saw a 60% increase on their online sales in the first 4 months of COVID. So we've had to change strategies here and look at how we interface, how we engage consumers from the online perspective. So then it led into discussions about how we could launch the Motorsport Collection brand, which is live today. So we're very excited. It's been challenging, but really exciting because COVID has definitely sped up digital transformation. We also noticed that consumers are still hungry. They want to buy online. They've not stopped shopping. So it was perfect timing for us to launch a new brand alongside the Motorsport Network team.
So the jacket you're wearing, someone can go and buy today?
Absolutely. And you get 10% off if you enter a special code.
Excellent. I'll buy 2. And Thomas, lastly, from a series point of view, I guess you're in a similar situation to Dale. You're Director of Marketing and Sponsorship, but there hasn't been any races to market or sponsor. How's that been for you? And tell me a bit about your role.
Thank you. And yes, it has been, of course, a very difficult year last year. And just to go one step back, I think for many it might be interesting. I'm one of those guys who grew up in automotive. So I've been really born in automotive, walking from a car parts distributor into oil, lubricant, sponsorship there. Joined the promoter 5 years ago. So this is my 5th season. And as you mentioned, yeah, it was a very difficult year, but we did have races last year. So we had 7 rallies to beat the World Championship. We had 3 before COVID hit. Then we had a very long time nothing. And then luckily we had 4 events still to take place. And that's something which we really learned over the last year, that we knew we had committed partners, and that not only commercial partners, but also in event organizers, teams, manufacturers, and they stick to us. And we, on that way, were able to finish the season on a high in Monza last year, but also having Estonia there stepping in. And this year already we have 2 successful rounds already. But it's very difficult to engage, of course, as also especially with deal with the tickets. People want to be on site, and they have to be consume motorsport now, especially digitally or through TV. And that's something where we have seen a transformation over the last few months. And that's something where we have been working with our partners, with all the digital teams, to really make sure we have the product. And of course, we have our own OTT, where people can watch everything live, WC Plus, all live. And I think that really helped us in this situation. We were already ready before we knew that we would need it. So it was very interesting.
Have you noticed that there's been more of an uptake in terms of the OTT platform, both with WRC and WRX, in terms of people now watching the races digitally rather than, obviously they're not going, but is that on the rise? Are people starting to consume more in that medium than they were before?
Yes, that's something we really see, and not only on the digital side, but also on the TV side. As of course, people, especially certain countries, had a very hard lockdown, so they had to stay at home. So they were consuming more TV. So we could see even our figures in the TV audience rising in WRC and also OTT. And yeah, you mentioned shortly World Rallycross. That's an exciting journey we will start this year. For the first time, we'll promote the World and European Rallycross. And that's something I cannot tell you anything about the past, as we just start from this season fresh. But we really see in WRC there's an uptake on digital media consumption, not only on the social platforms, our own OTT channel, but as well as on the TV side. So we have a higher average amount of viewers per rally. Of course, it depends on what other things are going on, what the restrictions are in the country, but we do see a positive uptake there.
Fantastic. And for everyone watching, if you want to ask questions, please do. Myself and the panel will answer anything that you can throw at us. So just put it in the chat box and we'll get that answered either during this, or we'll make sure we save some time at the end. And Jess, Thomas was talking about an uptick in video consumption, and I know part of your role is video. Can you tell me a little bit about what you have done during this period. Obviously, there's been no races, which has given us some time to look at content strategy, branding, tone of voice, and how we put things across with Autosport, but also motorsport.com. If you can go through that a little bit, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So you're right. It kind of gave us a bit of breathing room to reevaluate how it was that we were speaking to audiences, especially on the video side. Without live races, it meant that we had to think about what sorts of stories we wanted to tell our audiences, and it really gave us a chance to look at the kinds of internal champions that we had, in terms of, we've got an absolutely brilliant journalist team that maybe were used to focusing mainly on writing, but in this day and age, it's so important that when we're talking about media, we're talking about multimedia and not just written journalism, but how do we take that written journalism and make it social friendly? How do we take that and make it into a YouTube video? And I think that's been something that we've really seen across the business, a need for us to work closer as a team, even though we're all remotely. And to really look at, what do we have a wealth in our arsenal that we can actually put forward to fans, because fans want to see more. They want to see absolutely everything that they can. And one of the other things that we've really noticed as well is the importance of the human aspect of motorsport, and not just in terms of the drivers or the people that you see within the series that are front facing, but also in terms of internally, how important it's been that we show that we have personalities behind the brands that we represent, the fact that we are all humans trying to go about our jobs, but also that we are super knowledgeable and trustworthy. And that's been something that's really shown to have massive amounts of success. We started looking to things like holding Instagram live Q&As after every day of a Formula One weekend, and having Q&As with our fans and bringing our fans very much into the content and having them shape the content that we were making, because there's no better way or better feedback that you can get than by actually talking to the fans and asking what they want to see. And that was something that we got a lot of uptake on, a lot of positive response to, and actually gave us different avenues in which to be able to communicate directly with the fans. Because as I'm sure everybody on this panel especially knows, motorsport is one of the most inaccessible sports in the world. It's not like football where you can go down the park and have a kickabout with your friends. It's a case of needing to open up the world, open up people's eyes, be a bit of a gatekeeper and a friend, and showing how these series work, when to watch, how to watch. And the fact that it is truly global, we're talking about world series, international series, where there are different time zones and different start times, and trying to kind of bring communities together on a common ground and a common timing, and have everybody be able to access those sports has been even more important, I would say, this year than has been at any other point. But I think it's also given us a real wake-up call, in that because we can't get fans to live events, those digital properties are more important than ever. And we've seen the success that F1 had with the Drive to Survive Netflix series, which was phenomenally popular and probably one of the best marketing exercises that F1 could have done. And the key there was how do we bring the fan inside the sport and give them a viewpoint that they've never seen before. Now, obviously, slightly difficult for us to do, because we're not always at events, or we haven't been able to send film crews and everything, but we can still tell those stories and bring fans closer to the action through whether that, even if that stories throughout history about why that sport is so brilliant and why we are so passionate about these series that we cover. And that's been something that we've really brought in this year in order to, again, just have that connection with the fan base. And then when we are talking to them about products, we actually have already built up a level of trust. So when we're talking about products, it doesn't feel so much like selling. It actually feels like we're bringing them a really good opportunity, or something that we actually know that they'll care about. So that's been something that's been real testament of the work that's been going on behind the scenes. But it's just brilliant to see that connection with fans can be so fruitful.
And Dale, Jess has spoken about connection with fans online, and Thomas has spoken about the uptick in OTT. Do you feel like that's a long-term threat to ticket sales and people going to races, or is it actually creating a new audience for you to sell tickets to and getting a new demographic into motorsport?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got a lot of ex-colleagues and friends who work in live music, and we've had similar conversations that, you know, it's twofold, that it is making it a lot more accessible to people, and yes, you could just now sit at home and watch a concert or exactly this, you know, instead of going off to Birmingham, we could all do this once a year. But actually, you can't replace the live experience. It's something that will never go away. You know, you can come as close as possible. You can do this with VR headsets and whatever, but you just can't replicate it. So unlike something like retail, where the high street can very easily die, because, you know, what really draws you to go into a shop when you could just sit and do it online, live events are totally different. So I certainly don't see any of this cannibalizing what we do at all. It's the total opposite. I think, as Jess was saying, I think we've this past year has definitely given people an opportunity to explore more things, and to watch, you know, as we probably all have, to watch the entire back catalogue of Netflix, and to find sports and events and new interests that we never thought we had. You know, I'm now the world's #1 snooker fan, but I think that says more about me than anything else. But I think absolutely watching things like Drive to Survive and flicking through the TV and watching some of the stuff on Sky Sports and Eurosport, etc., I think is getting people more excited. And I think, you know, Hugh this morning in his keynote said that there's definitely, we can all feel the pent up demand that's there to go out and experience all of this live. So I think actually the work that we're doing with OTT and virtual events is only enhancing and putting much more of a demand out there to go and experience motorsport live.
Great. And Sarah, Dale kind of alluded to the fact that he buys his Iron Maiden t-shirts online these days. In terms of that switch between high street and online, and how that would impact a motorsport collection, do you feel like this motorsport collection is something that could have been as fruitful before COVID, or is this something that will really be accelerated by the fact that people are now buying more of their merchandise and clothing online?
I think, it's never going to hinder it. I think everyone is, online on their mobile phones constantly. Everyone's still shopping, as I mentioned. I think it's the right time for new brands, whether they're small or large, to really look at the online proposition. I, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say this, I think bricks and mortar will die out. We've seen a lot of retailers closing across Europe, particularly in the UK market. We've seen also retailers who haven't got their act together on online, dying also as well. So you really have to look at online as the new bricks and mortar, which I think is ideal space for us to launch the new collection. It is about engaging people. It's the same as what you guys are doing, but in retail, we have to look at different channels to go across that we've probably not thought about before. I mean, TikTok is like, everyone's on TikTok through COVID as well, particularly, you know, in the fashion arena. So it's about, you know, maybe we need to create filters or new gifts on Instagram, anything that can engage the consumer a bit more. But it's also what Jess said, the consumer is looking for a sense of truth as well. So it's not about just launching a fast fashion brand out there and, you know, thinking it's going to sell. You have to resonate with the fan base and the consumer and offer them, you know, the USP on any new launch is critical.
Okay, that's great. We've got a question coming through. I think it's probably one for Jess. I mean, I might be able to help with it. From Thomas, he's asked, with virtual racing such as Le Mans 24 virtual, F1 esports, etc., is that something that he's written? Is that something which can be part of marketing for a real life championship after COVID? I guess. Is it something? I guess the question really is it something that can work with real life series, or is it a competitor? Or you know, we saw massive uptick in interest with Lando Norris and people taking part. So what's your thoughts on that, Jess?
Yeah, I think, again, it just goes to show that I think one of the biggest selling points in terms of how it helps real life series is the fact that we get to see drivers that have taken up sim racing whilst they couldn't really race. We got to see a completely different side to their personality, and it almost felt like the highest level of access that you could get because they were live and you could chat to them and they could chat back to you, and there's that real sense of community. And I think Lando Norris is probably one of the drivers that's absolutely nailed that side of his branding and his marketing. He's got a huge fan base off the back of it. He's launched businesses of his own separate from Formula One off the back of it, and it's just gone to show that I don't think it'd ever be a hindrance. Obviously, we have certain people maybe arguing, is it a distraction? But I think, you know, when we've got a 7-time world champion who also has fashion brands and commissions and everything and can still go out on track and win world championships pretty comfortably, I don't think that's a distraction at all. In terms of will it survive after COVID, there's a completely different market. And I think this is important in that it shouldn't be seen as trying to do the same thing. The esports world, is not necessarily aimed at motorsport enthusiasts, and that's fine because actually there's a huge market for esports, and F1 in particular or motorsport in particular, have been quite slow on the digital side in any case, and so we're quite slow to the esports world, but they massively took to it. They saw massive uptake. There's difference between the F1 esports series and the F1 virtual events. The F1 virtual events tend to include real life drivers, and so will pull in fans of those drivers and potentially motorsport enthusiasts. The F1 the F1 esports series is for pro esports drivers, and again, I think that's a completely different audience. And I think it would be a miss to try and say that, you know, that I don't think they're competing. They're going after completely different audience sets. And actually what is so brilliant about esports is that it's way more manageable on a mass level for audiences to get involved in esports in some way. You know, you can get pretty good sim rigs for not a lot of money in relation to some other sports, or potentially even going to a live event, because unless you are lucky enough, especially in if we're talking in F1, you know, in the UK we get one event, we get one Grand Prix. So unless you're planning on taking a holiday vacation to other Grand Prix, which I would massively suggest that once we all can safely, that everybody should, but it's quite expensive. And so what esports allows is for, on a smaller basis and for a little bit less money, they can actually get involved in motorsport and start understanding the rules and the regulations and understand driving styles. And when you're watching those live events, it actually helps. So I think it's a great marketing tool. I think F1 and other motorsport series were absolutely right to take it up, especially in COVID, but it should be something that continues because it brings a whole different audience into your world that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that showed with the Motorsport Games Le Mans 24, which was hugely much more popular than we ever could have imagined. It was fantastic, and I think that really led to a massive interest. And the subsequent launch of Traxion this week, the Motorsport Games platform for consuming esports content, which is separate from the racing side, which kind of goes into what you're saying, really. And Thomas, do you what's your opinion on esports? And obviously Rally has got a big gaming background. It's historically something that's had a big uptake in Rally. What's that your point of view on that?
Esport, I think, is a very important part. We are doing a championship of esport for 5 seasons now, so we're in our 5th season. And what is, of course, the case with Rally is you need the driver's license. You cannot go with Formula One, start in go-karting and then learn the way. In Rally, you have to start when you have your license. So, of course, esports is a fantastic way to start and to explore what Rally is about. It's not like you have a standard circuit, like you go to Silverstone or Zandvoort. You need to learn the pace note system, how it's all working. And so we really see esports as something very important. And that's also why we, together with the FIA, have the FIA Rally Star program, which is detecting new rally champions for the future. And of course, the good thing is you can start with doing that by sim racing. So you take your sim rig, you take the WRC game, and then you can start and use the digital world, just like what Jess was saying. You really can be part of. And esport is something fundamental, what we see as a pillar of rally, not a competitor. You cannot compare and have a real driver competing at a fantastic level in rally. It's of course it's a bit different, as they are used to have the risk, they fear, and really know, okay, if I do this wrong, I end up in a tree with 200 miles per hour. But yeah, it's a fantastic way to work together. And so we don't see this as a competitor. We embraced it a long time ago. And we're now, as mentioned, in our 5th season. Our events are, of course, the World Final is a physical event. So we have postponed that. That will take place hopefully in the next few months, as we want everybody to be at the same location, the same rig. As of course, you need to make sure everybody's playing the same, and not that you have somebody else competing for you, or you twist and tweak your sim rig. But no, esports is a fundamental pillar for us, and we really see this as an important thing for the future to continue even after COVID.
Fantastic, thanks, Thomas. A couple of minutes left. There's a couple of questions that have come in. Jamie said, with Brexit and travel restrictions still throwing up some concerns, but the pound is in a stronger position, are motorsport businesses adjusting how they operate on the international stage? I can talk on that from Motorsport Network point of view. We won't be sending any fewer people to races. We will be working with the restrictions and working around things like visas and working with series to make sure that we always have people at events where we can, where it's where restrictions permit. Part of what Motorsport Network does as a business is being there. That's what makes us the place where people come for content, both motorsport.com, Autosport, Motorsport Total, GP Racing Magazine. All of these rely on the fact that we are there on the ground, talking to drivers, talking to teams, right next to the track, and that's not going to change. Things are slightly more difficult, but that's our problem to solve, and not anything that will ever impact readers, users, viewers, etc. And Ewan has asked, with the fast pace of change in the current digital marketing space, how hard is it to get ahead of new trends and fully utilize their potential? I think that's one for Jess. She's all up on the trends. So what tools are we using? How are we using data to get ahead?
I think, well, in terms of trends, we've got a brilliant team internally that are on top of all these trends. We're living and breathing social formats, whether that's on, we've mentioned TikTok already on this panel. And I think the problem can be that, especially when you're a large organization, you can be a bit slow to take those up. But I think that it just comes to living and breathing what it is that your audience is looking to do. And trying to be on top of that and to be authentic. I think brands can get a bit in a bit of trouble when they see something that looks shiny and they go, I want to go and do some of that, and then it falls flat. So I think it is about living and breathing those trends, as well as looking at the data. I mean, the data will show you immediately what it is that you're doing right and wrong. And we've got a good suite of data behind us that we're constantly tracking. But I think authenticity is the key when looking at trends.
Yeah, I can only agree with that. I think the other thing that we're trying to do is, as Jess said before, is really connect with people and make sure that we are not just pushing our opinion on people. We want to interact. We want to know what the fans think. We're all fans here at the network, and we all love motorsport, and I think putting that across is something very key. I'm conscious that we've now reached the end. Huge thanks to everyone who's joined, and thanks to Jess, Thomas, Sarah, and Dale for taking part in this. It's been a brilliant chat, and thanks very much. And I can hand back over to Bryn.
Thanks very much, James. That's fascinating. I was really wondering though as well. It covers so many things there, but James, I don't know if I can bring you back in for one quick question, unless you clicked off already, may have disappeared. But James, if you're still there, do you think there were huge surprises within motorsport as to what the audience were prepared to receive and what they were demanding? Was there like a direct correlation, or were there massive surprises that you didn't envisage?
No, I don't think there was huge surprises. I think, to be honest, I think the surprise was that the demand was still there. We expected, people to drift away when there was no races. I think a lot of people had a lot of things going on with their personal life, and we expected them to kind of focus on that and just park motorsport for a while. But that was never really the case. They wanted more information, they wanted news, but I think actually what they wanted was something to take their mind off of what was going on elsewhere. So we tried to provide more in-depth coverage, more features to kind of replace the news side of it, historic stuff, which obviously particularly autosport is so famous for. And what we actually saw was that the engagement and time spent on our pages has gone up. The challenge then was, and is now that motorsport is starting back up again. Obviously, we've got Formula One testing this weekend. As Thomas said, the rally is happening now. So there is motorsport happening. Is to keep those engaged people. They keep, reading features, engaging in podcasts, looking at videos, engaging with the social, and also the news. And then I think we're really providing more of a service than we did before. But it's as Jess said, it's using the data, using the tools, using the people we've got within the business to keep learning and keep an eye on everything that's happening and react to trends and try and predict trends and try things out. And fast fail. If we try things and they don't work, that's okay. Move on to the next thing. I think that was really the key during the past year.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few months. But thank you very much to James and to the panel there. And if you want to keep involved and maybe get networking with any of those, this is your time, really. We've got 5 minutes now between this session and the next. Thanks, James. I'll let you disappear off the screen now. It's that weird, awkward moment, isn't it, where you're never sure if you can leave or not. But a great chat. And we've got the next session coming up very, very soon.